Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, classical music and the Weather Channel. Or not classical music aficionados and the Weather Channel. What do we have in common? Classical music people, it occurs to me recently, like last night, are uniquely suited to today's media environment. I think the reason is because, there's many reasons, but think about what we face now. I mean, when I was young, and you were young, remember, we're all sunk in nostalgia as well, and curmudgeonly and annoyed with the current state of being, the current state of affairs. There were probably 2 or 3 news channels, and that was it, right? And maybe a couple local stations, and we all got our news from the same place, and we all watched 60 Minutes if you were in the United States on Sunday nights, and there was a limited amount of news that we could kind of digest. It happened in reasonably sized clumps. And the same was true of the classical music record industry. There was a limited number of new releases. There were a few major labels, a couple independents. Every month they published a list of what was coming out. You could look at Gramophone or a music magazine and a Schwann catalog, see what was new, decide what you wanted to listen to, chat about it with your friends. All was well with the world. And much as classical music people like to complain, and we do, and as good at it as we are, and we really, really are, things are terribly different now. Everything is fragmented. The classical music industry has become a series of tribes or cliques devoted to little tiny niches of the repertoire. Early music, period instrument music, Renaissance music, organ music, piano music, opera. These things always existed back then too, but because the catalog was so much smaller, people tended to be, I think, a little bit more generalist than we are today. Now there's so much stuff in every category that you could spend your lifetime just working on a teeny tiny little bit of the repertoire, because there are 7,000 billion zillion recordings of stuff from that teeny tiny little blip in the repertoire. The same thing has happened in academia. People have specialized, and specializations have broken up into a billion different ridiculous subspecialties of just extraordinary triviality. And that brings up the Weather Channel, or Weather Channels, multiple, because they are so similar to what today's classical music environment is like. First of all, there isn't just one Weather Channel. There are 3 on my cable network. There is AccuWeather, there is the Weather Channel, and there is Fox Weather. Now, they're all talking about the same thing: weather. Now, I'm not saying weather isn't important. Weather is meaningful, of course, but it's just the weather. You stick your head out the window. There's the weather. How much can you talk about weather? Well, what a question, huh? Seriously, how many recordings of Beethoven's Fifth do you need? Well, that's the question, isn't it? So these 3 channels are all gabbing about the weather, but the issue isn't that they gab about the weather, because your local news outlets do it. Everybody else does it too. Your phone does it. You're looking up at your phone. You look it up on your computer. I look at my little screen bar up thing, and there's like a little cloud with little raindrops falling from it, like it needs to tell me it's raining. When I look outside, it's raining. Okay. So now the thing is this, that there's a 24/7 news cycle. So not only do they talk about the weather, but they talk about the weather 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, sometimes these things are just recycled. They get there's maybe an hour cycle or 45-minute cycle of weather news, and it just repeats over and over and over and over. Also, like the classical music world, where we're all listening to the same stuff over and over and over in slightly different performances on the 3 different weather channels. the 3 different versions of Girl Eater or whatever the heck it is. So yeah, I mean, there it is, the Weather Channel. But what really blew my mind about it recently was that today is the start of daylight savings time here in the United States for those bits of it that observe daylight savings time. Some parts don't, like Hawaii or Arizona or the Navajo Indian Reservation or one of those Indian reservations or more of them. They get to do what they want. I wish I lived on one because I think daylight savings time is stupid, but that's me. No, what I'm talking about is this. They had daylight savings time weather features. Now, what is a daylight savings time weather feature? Well, first, they had a cardiac surgeon interviewed on heart and health risks of losing an hour, springing forward, moving your clocks forward an hour of daylight savings time. And this guy was sitting there very seriously and sententiously saying, well, the issue with daylight savings time is that you don't have time to gradually adjust. You simply wake up the next day and your clocks are an hour ahead. And this can be unsettling to your heart rhythm, your something. I have yet to see, I have to confess, I have yet to see any news report, and we have news. Boy, do we have news. We have news channels that report everything. I have yet to see a news report of somebody who died of daylight savings time. The last time I checked, daylight savings time was not a lethal event. And those who did die over the transition to daylight savings time, I have never seen a causal link between heart stoppage and setting your clock forward 1 hour at 2 a.m. on a Saturday evening. I have not, and I doubt that I will. So that was one story. And then the next story that really blew my mind was how to prepare your pet for daylight savings time. And this thing went, prepare your pet? I mean, prepare your pet? I mean, I don't know. Let me Finster, Mildred, are you around? Come here. Hello, Mildred. Hi. Hi, Finster. Hi, girls. How you doing? Come here. Come here. Can I see you for a moment? Come here. Hi. Hello. Come here. You have to lure them in. We're going to do a very brief interview here. And then we will get back to business here. Come here. Here you go. Come here. Good girl. Come here. Okay, so here's Finster. Finster, say hello. Finster, quick interview. Were you traumatized by the advent of daylight savings time? No. Were you sufficiently prepared for daylight savings time? What the hell are you talking about? You see? I mean, look at that. Does she look like she was traumatized? Was there a problem? Thank you very much. There you go. Have a snack. Go ahead. They're right there. Help yourself. So there you go. There you have it. Straight from the cat's mouth. Do my cats look like they are traumatized by the fact that they lost an hour of sleep last night? I mean, they're up walking around all night anyway. What difference does it make? It's just absurd. And Mildred, forget it. I mean, Mildred, she won't even be bothered to let me ask her the question. So the fact of the matter is that what we are viewing in these 24-hour news cycles and stuff like that on the Weather Channel and these other things is a monumental exaggeration of the trivial. And that is something that classical music people do better than anyone in the world. We talk about differences in performances, teeny tiny little difference, and we attribute to these teeny tiny little differences vast, ridiculous significance. I mean, I'll give you the latest example. Remember, we did a talk a few days ago on reference recordings, and we talked about Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra. And I began with that little puzzle in the Carillon recording because he takes that 16th note, da, 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 dum, that da, dum, in tempo, essentially in tempo. Or maybe he speeds it up even a little bit. Who knows? Or everyone else slows it down a little bit. The point was that his performance sounded different from all the others. And it differed by a fraction of a microsecond on how he handled a single 16th note. And somebody wrote a comment and they said, well, Karajan is not in tempo and it ruins the whole performance. And I just was like, what? Huh? What do you mean it ruins the whole performance? First of all, it happens to be that Karajan does what Strauss did and what Karl Böhm does and other Straussians. And arguably, he is more in tempo than just about any other performance out there. So the person who claimed that he did it wrong was wrong. I mean, categorically wrong. But the idea that a 16th note is going to absolutely destroy the value of this performance when everything else about it is glorious is nuts, maybe. Well, it evidences a certain lack of priority, or maybe relativism about what matters and what doesn't. Everything matters equally. It's like pilpul in Talmudic discourse. You split hairs, and every single thing is as important as every other single thing. Now, this is not new to the world of classical music. Remember, there's that whole debate in, what is it, the Hammerklavier Sonata, or one of those Beethoven sonatas about there's a misprint, and the misprint is what people should actually do because it's better than what Beethoven actually wrote. And this whole debate about like that one note thing. Don't tell me what it is. I just can't be bothered to remember it right now. I mean, it's full of this sort of stuff. And people argue ceaselessly about unbelievably trivial details. And I see them most frequently on the Weather Channel for some reason, probably because everybody likes weather. We all care about the weather, but how much can you make of it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Once you've told somebody it's going to be sunny, is there anything else to say? And then there's the original programming on the Weather Channel. Oh my God, you've got ice road truckers, and basically the original program is either disasters or people who have really crazy jobs going through places where the weather really sucks most of the year. So they're usually drivers of some sort of vehicle or pilots or something like that. But you're taking this one little topic and blowing it up out of all proportion. And of course, the other thing about the Weather Channel is that it thrives on extremes. I mean, that's what it's talking about. It's do classical music people, right? The weather is either going to be gorgeous, fabulous, terrific, or it's going to be terrible. And they're just praying for terrible. They can't say it out loud, of course. They can't say we're rooting for death and destruction and horror and billions of dollars in damage and insurance claims and whatnot, and tornadoes and volcanic eruptions and convulsions of nature. But the glee in their eyes when these things happen. And they get to be live. They fly out to wherever the horrible thing is happening and stand there in the middle of the flood or as the dam's collapsing and, talk with unbelievable enthusiasm and sang-froid about whatever catastrophe is befalling the communities, around them. And of course, we as classical music people love that sort of thing. We're always interested in performances that are cataclysmically awful. Those are the videos that get the most views from you folks. Always, or works, or composers, or anything that really, really sucks. We just relish. I mean, my review of Long Long's horrid Sanson disc, it was thousands of views in the first 5 seconds. It's just unbelievable, the pile-on that happened. And the Weather Channel is rather like that as well. And so my theory is that we, the classical music community, are the best prepared to understand, to enjoy, maybe, to tolerate, if necessary, modern life, the modern media environment with its unbelievable constant emphasis on everything and anything. Its total inability to prioritize, the significance of what it's talking about, just this need to fill up time at all costs. I guess that paints a somewhat unflattering picture of the classical music world and its listeners. I mean, maybe it is a little bit, but I prefer to think of it simply as a state of being. We have conditioned ourselves to deal with the ability to develop the ability, let's put it this way, at our best, to filter massive amounts of really trivial information, to decide either if we're doing it right, what's important and what is not important, or we just love all of the trivia equally, like Bruckner people who don't care whether there's the same symphony that's exactly the same as the other version of the same symphony, but for, 3 notes that he changed one day when he was sleepwalking. And that's another version of the same thing, and we give it equal weight with all the other versions of the same thing. You see, it's the Weather Channel. It's the Weather Channel all over again. That's what it is. So take heart, folks. Those of you who think that, we are old and regressive and contrary and antediluvian and all of those things, we're not. Not a bit. We are products of the modern world, and we are the best suited to address its particular challenges. You're in good shape. Trust me, folks. So keep on listening, of course, and take care.